After losing his father, teenage Zach Cooper moves from New York City to the quiet town of Madison, Delaware, with his mother, Gail. Gail has taken a job as the local high school's vice principal, hoping the fresh start will help Zach move on from his father's death. While unloading their belongings, Zach accidentally drops a box in the street. That's when he notices the girl living next door. Her name is Hannah. She compliments Zach's hat and introduces herself, but before they can talk much, her father calls her inside. The man is R.L. Stein, and the moment Stein sees Zach talking to Hannah, his friendly expression disappears. He gives Zach one strict warning: stay away from Hannah and never set foot on his property. Zach has no idea why Stein is so protective of his daughter, but he decides not to push his luck. That night, alone in his new room, Zach thinks about his father. It's been a year since he died, but the loss still hurts. That's the real reason Gail brought him to Madison. She hopes a new town, a new school, and a fresh start will finally help her son move forward. The next morning, Zach goes with Gail to Madison High, where she is introduced as the new vice principal. There, Zach meets Champ, a student who immediately realizes he's the new kid. The two quickly hit it off. When Gail announces the upcoming school dance, Champ asks if Zach has a girlfriend. Zach admits he doesn't. Champ laughs. Neither do I. The two exchange numbers and decide to go to the dance together as friends. For the first time in a while, Zach starts feeling like Madison might actually be a fresh start. But that feeling doesn't last long. That evening, while taking out the trash, Zach suddenly feels like someone is watching him. He turns around and finds Hannah standing there. She doesn't attend school because her father homeschools her. Then, instead of going back inside, she leads Zach through the woods and shows him something unexpected: an abandoned amusement park. Hidden among the trees is a massive Ferris wheel overlooking the entire town. Hannah explains that the park was shut down years ago because there wasn't enough money to keep it running. The two climb to the top, and for the first time, Zach opens up about his father. Hannah understands more than he expects. She barely remembers her own mother and has spent most of her life moving from place to place with Stein. For Zach, it's the first time since his father's death that someone seems to truly understand what he's going through. But when Hannah returns home, Stein is waiting. He already knows she's been with Zach, and once again, he gives him the same warning: stay away from Hannah or else. Zach heads home, trying to put the strange encounter behind him. Then, later that night, he hears shouting coming from next door. It's Hannah arguing with her father. Zach listens closely. Then a terrifying scream suddenly cuts through the house. The lights go out. Zach freezes. Something is seriously wrong. He rushes next door and asks Stein if Hannah is okay, but Stein calmly tells him he's imagining things. According to him, Hannah is perfectly fine, but Zach knows what he heard. Stein shuts the door in his face. Unable to shake the feeling that Hannah is in danger, Zach runs home and calls the police. Soon, Sheriff Stevens arrives with Officer Brooks. Zach explains everything, and the officers knock on Stein's door. Stein calmly claims Hannah left earlier and insists there was never an argument. Then, another scream echoes from inside the house. Zach immediately points it out, but Stein quickly turns up the television, making it sound like the scream came from there. The officers don't see enough reason to search the house. They accept Stein's explanation and leave. Gail is furious with Zach for wasting the police's time and sends him to his room, but Zach still isn't convinced. If Hannah really is safe, then why is her father hiding something? And before long, Zach is about to discover a secret that turns his entire world upside down. That evening, Gail gets ready for the school dance and leaves Zach with his Aunt Lorraine, but Zach's mind is somewhere else. Looking through his bedroom window, he sees Stein arguing with Hannah again. Whatever is happening next door, it's clearly getting worse. Zach quickly makes an excuse to leave and calls Champ. Champ arrives dressed for the dance, expecting a fun night out. Instead, Zach tells him they have a much bigger problem. He believes Stein has locked Hannah inside the house. So the two wait until Stein leaves, then sneak across the property and climb over the fence. They find a way into the basement and start searching the house. But this isn't an ordinary basement. Strange traps are hidden everywhere. After carefully making their way upstairs, Zach calls out for Hannah. No answer. Then they notice something that makes even less sense. Rows of locked manuscripts fill the room, and some of them sound like something is moving inside. Champ recognizes the titles immediately: The Ghost Next Door, Night of the Living Dummy, and dozens of other terrifying stories from the famous Goosebumps series. Every manuscript was written by the mysterious author R.L. Stein, a writer whose real identity has always been kept secret. Then Champ notices one particular book, The Abominable Snowman of Pasadena. Unlike the others, this manuscript is locked. Champ spots a key nearby and can't resist finding out why. He unlocks it and opens the book. Zach immediately tells him they should focus on finding Hannah, but before they can move, someone suddenly attacks them. They hit the floor, the lights switch on. It's Hannah. She demands to know why they're inside her house. Zach explains that he thought she was in danger. Then Hannah notices the open manuscript. Her expression instantly changes. "Did you open one of the books?" Champ reluctantly admits that he did. Hannah tells him to put it back, but it's already too late. The manuscript slips from Champ's hands and suddenly bursts open. A massive explosion shakes the room. Something enormous crawls out of the pages, the abominable snowman. Zach and Champ freeze. Hannah urgently tells them to stay quiet, but Champ accidentally knocks over a lamp. The creature turns toward them and charges. Zach manages to knock it off balance, giving the three of them just enough time to escape. The snowman storms outside. Hannah grabs the manuscript and runs after it, while Zach and Champ have no choice but to follow. Then something even worse happens. Another manuscript suddenly opens behind them. Zach realizes this isn't about one escaped monster. Someone is opening the books. They chase the snowman into an abandoned factory, where the creature suddenly stops to grab some chocolate. Hannah tries opening the manuscript to pull it back inside, but the snowman notices. It charges toward her and knocks the book away. Zach helps Hannah grab it, and the three hide behind a locked gate. The snowman starts smashing through the barrier. They're seconds away from being crushed. Then, Stein arrives. He opens the manuscript, and the snowman is instantly sucked back inside. Stein is furious. He takes Zach, Champ, and Hannah back home, where Zach finally discovers the truth. The mysterious author behind all those books, R.L. Stein, is Hannah's father. But that only raises an even bigger question. How did his fictional monsters become real? Stein finally explains. As a child, he suffered from a severe allergy that kept him trapped inside his house. Other kids bullied him constantly, even throwing rocks at his window. So Stein created his own friends. He wrote stories about monsters, demons, and terrifying creatures that could scare the bullies away. But then something impossible happened. His imagination became real. The monsters escaped from his stories and began roaming the real world. Stein eventually discovered that keeping each manuscript closed was the only way to keep the creatures trapped. But once a book was opened, the monster inside could escape. For years, Stein believed he had everything under control, until he notices something terrifying. Another manuscript is already open, Night of the Living Dummy, and inside is Slappy. Unlike the other monsters, Slappy doesn't just want freedom, he wants revenge. Stein tries to trick him into giving up the manuscript, but Slappy sees through the plan. He grabs the book and sets it on fire. Stein watches in horror as the manuscript burns. Now there's no way to put Slappy back inside. Slappy looks at him and makes his intentions clear. He's done being controlled. He wants every monster Stein has ever created to be free. Then, with a flash of light, Slappy disappears. Zach looks around. Every single Goosebumps manuscript is gone. Slappy has taken them all, and now, nothing is stopping the monsters from escaping. Meanwhile, Slappy loads the stolen manuscripts into a creepy haunted car and starts throwing them into the streets. Every time a book hits the ground, another monster escapes. Then Slappy burns the manuscript, making sure Stein can never trap that creature again. Within minutes, Madison is completely overrun. Monsters tear through the streets, giant creatures destroy buildings, and terrifying plants spread across the city. Stein finally realizes what Slappy is doing. This isn't just an escape, it's revenge. After years of being trapped inside a book, Slappy wants Stein to watch everything he created destroy the city. Back at Stein's house, the doors suddenly lock from the outside. Then dozens of creepy garden gnomes attack. Zach fights back, but the creatures keep getting back up every time they're knocked down. The group barely makes it into the basement and locks themselves inside. There, Stein sees his burned manuscripts and realizes they're losing the only thing that can stop the monsters. Meanwhile, Slappy attacks the police station and freezes the officers with his supernatural powers. And Lorraine isn't safe either. Outside her house, an adorable little dog suddenly reveals itself as one of Stein's monsters and attacks her. With the entire city falling apart, Stein, Zach, Hannah, and Champ move through the ruins, desperately searching for a way to stop the outbreak. We've lost all the manuscripts. How are we supposed to stop them? Then Zach gets an idea. You don't need to rewrite every story. You only need to write one story that contains all the monsters. Stein realizes Zach is right. But there's one problem. He needs his supernatural typewriter, and it's inside Madison High School, where the school dance is still going on. The students have no idea that monsters are taking over the city outside. As the group heads toward the school, something invisible suddenly starts attacking their car. Stein immediately recognizes it, the Invisible Boy. Before they can deal with him, a giant mantis appears and chases them through the streets. The car crashes near a mall, forcing everyone to escape on foot. Inside the mall, Champ opens a bottle of orange juice. Unfortunately, a nearby werewolf catches the scent. Everyone freezes. Stein quickly sprays himself with perfume, while the group hides beneath a table. The werewolf climbs directly over them. Zach spots a toy nearby and throws it across the room, distracting the creature long enough for everyone to escape. But the werewolf catches up outside. Just when it looks like they're trapped, a car suddenly slams into the creature. It's Lorraine. After losing phone service and realizing something was seriously wrong, she had gone looking for them. Zach quickly tells her to head to the police station and then make her way to the school. The others take a shortcut through the cemetery. As Zach and Hannah walk behind Stein and Champ, Hannah's shirt suddenly gets caught on a statue. She panics, but Zach frees her and gently reassures her. For a moment, everything around them goes quiet. The two share a brief, romantic moment. Then moonlight falls directly onto Hannah. Her entire body begins to glow. Zach freezes, and suddenly, everything makes sense. Hannah isn't just Stein's daughter, she's one of his creations. Before Zach can even process what he's learned, zombies suddenly burst from the ground. Dozens of them rise from the cemetery and charge toward the group. Hannah grabs Zach's hand, and they run for their lives. They barely make it through the cemetery gates, but Zach can't stop thinking about what he just discovered. If Hannah is one of Stein's creations, what happens to her when all the monsters are finally trapped? Meanwhile, Lorraine reaches the police station looking for help, but Slappy is already waiting for her. Before she can react, he uses his powers to freeze her in place. Back at Madison High, Steen, Zach, and the others search for the supernatural typewriter. While they're looking, Zach pulls Steen aside. There's one question he needs answered. Is Hannah really your daughter? Steen finally tells him the truth. Before creating Hannah, he was completely alone. So he wrote a daughter who believed she was a real person. To Stein, Hannah was never just another character. She was his daughter. Zach understands, but there's no time to dwell on it. Hannah suddenly arrives with good news. They've found the typewriter. Stein explains that he can write one final goosebump story containing every monster. If he finishes it, all of the creatures can be trapped again. But Slappy has no intention of letting that happen. Stein tells Zach to warn everyone and protect the school while he writes. Meanwhile, the students are still enjoying the dance, completely unaware that monsters have taken over Madison. Zach rushes onto the stage and warns everyone. Monsters are outside. The entire city is under attack. Nobody believes him, until a giant mantis suddenly crawls across the wall and grabs a student. The gym erupts in panic. Then Slappy arrives. Using the remaining manuscripts, he releases even more monsters and burns each book behind them, making sure Stein can never trap them again. Zach tells the students that Stein is writing a new story that can capture every monster, but they have to protect him until he's finished. Everyone starts barricading the doors. Outside, Slappy sends his army toward the school. Within moments, the building is under siege. Robots blast through the entrances, while creatures swarm the halls. Deep inside the school, Stein desperately types the names of every monster into his new story. At the same time, a girl named Tyler tries to escape with her boyfriend when a werewolf suddenly appears. Her boyfriend runs away, leaving her behind. Champ sees Tyler in danger and jumps onto the werewolf, biting it hard enough to make the creature retreat. Impressed by his courage, Tyler kisses him, but there's no time to celebrate. Stein is running out of time. Slappy suddenly finds him and attacks. Stein tries to protect the typewriter, but Slappy crushes his fingers, leaving him unable to write. Zach and Hannah rush in and force Slappy to retreat. Stein looks down at the unfinished story. Only 2 pages remain. With the school collapsing around them, Zach grabs the typewriter and helps Stein and Hannah escape. Giant plants have already invaded the building, and more monsters are closing in. When they finally reunite with Champ and the other students, Zach notices something strange. Moonlight shines directly onto Hannah, and her body begins glowing again. Before anyone can react, the monsters start surrounding them. Everyone rushes into a classroom and locks the doors. Stein tells them that Slappy only wants him. If I leave, he'll follow me. So maybe you can survive. But Zach has another idea. If Slappy is obsessed with Stein, they can use that obsession against him. Stein gets onto a school bus and drives away from the school. Slappy immediately spots him and sends the monsters after him. A giant mantis catches up and crashes into the bus. The creatures surround the vehicle and rip open the doors, only to find out that Stein isn't inside. The bus is empty. Zach had activated it remotely and sent it down another route. Then the monsters notice something else. A bomb. The moment they open the bus door, boom, a massive explosion tears through the vehicle, taking several monsters with it. For a moment, everyone thinks they've finally won, but then the monsters begin moving again. One by one, they regenerate. They can't be killed that easily. Back at the abandoned amusement park, Slappy watches his army come back to life. His plan has failed, but he's not giving up. Now he knows exactly what he wants. He'll find Stein himself. Meanwhile, at the abandoned amusement park, Zack follows Stein's instructions and continues writing the final story, but they're running out of time. Slappy has already found them. He steps forward with a dangerous smile. "Stein, I thought you were my best friend. You created me and then locked me inside a book. Now it's my turn to put you inside one." Slappy pulls out a special manuscript containing one of his most dangerous creations, a massive swallowing monster capable of devouring almost anything. The creature immediately attacks. The amusement park begins collapsing as the monster tears through everything in its path. Stein tells Zack and the others to keep moving. "I'll distract it." Zack hesitates. "What am I supposed to write?" Stein gives him the answer. "Write what's happening right now." Zack, Champ, and Hannah race toward a giant ride above the park. Zack starts typing the final story while the swallowing monster attacks Stein. The creature eventually swallows him whole, but Slappy notices something important. Stein doesn't have the finished manuscript, so he calls every remaining monster toward the ride. One after another, they begin climbing toward Zack. Zack keeps writing. He adds every monster to the story, then finally types the words, "The end." The story is complete, but before they can celebrate, the giant mantis attacks the ride. The entire structure collapses, sending Zack, Hannah, and Champ crashing to the ground. They survive the fall, but the monsters are already closing in. Zack looks down at the completed manuscript, and he knows exactly what will happen if he opens it. Hannah will be pulled inside too. Hannah already knows. She looks at Zack. "You have to open it." Zack refuses. He can't lose her, but Hannah reaches for the manuscript herself and opens it. A blinding light bursts from the pages. One by one, the monsters are sucked back into their manuscripts. Even the swallowing monster releases Stein, freeing him from inside. But then Hannah starts getting pulled toward the book as well. Zack grabs her hand. He's desperately trying to hold on. Then Slappy makes one final attack on Stein. Stein kicks him directly into the glowing manuscript. Slappy disappears inside. Hannah looks at Zack and smiles. Everything's going to be okay. Then she admits there's only one thing she wishes she could have done with him: danced. She kisses Zack, and slowly, Hannah is pulled into the book. Zack can only watch as the girl he loves disappears into the pages. Champ quickly closes the manuscript. The monsters are gone, but so is Hannah. Stein stands in silence, heartbroken after losing the daughter he created. Sometime later, Madison High School is repaired and reopens. Stein begins working there as an English teacher, while Lorraine continues supporting him. It's clear the two have grown closer. During class, Stein explains that every good story needs three things: a beginning, a middle, and an exciting ending. After class, Zack approaches him. He still can't stop thinking about Hannah, but before Stein can answer, Hannah suddenly appears. Zack is stunned. Stein reveals that he rewrote her original story and brought her back. For the first time, Zack and Hannah can finally be together. Stein burns the new manuscript, making sure Hannah can never be trapped inside a book again. Zack and Hannah leave together, finally getting the happy ending they wanted. But Stein's relief doesn't last long. The supernatural typewriter suddenly begins moving by itself. Someone is writing on it. Stein slowly approaches and then realizes the truth. It's the invisible boy. Because he was invisible, he was never trapped inside the manuscript with the other monsters, and now he's still free. The typewriter keeps writing. Stein stares in horror. The nightmare isn't over yet.